Hello everyone and welcome to lesson 1.8 in our global development unit, and today we're going to talk about economic stability, sustainability. By the end of this lesson, you should be able to do the following. Explain what economic sustainability is, describe and explain the north-south divide, and be able to explain how the north-south divide can be reduced. So all of this is what we're going to talk about today in economic sustainability. So before jumping full-fledged into economic sustainability, we need to first establish and understand that there are three different pillars of sustainability that we will need to be discussing throughout this unit. And the first one is economic sustainability, which is what we're talking about right now. And here's the definition. It aims to reduce the factors that threaten economic well-being. So it's just trying to remove any issues that are going to impede economic development for any country, regardless if it's a developed or developing nation. Just removing any barriers that are going to prevent that country from being economically successful. Secondly, we have the second pillar, which is social sustainability, and this aims to reduce factors that threaten human social well-being. So again, that's the same as economic sustainability, just socially. So we're trying to remove barriers that are going to prevent people from advancing socially. And then lastly, we have environmental sustainability, and this aims to reduce factors that threaten environmental well-being. So again, this is removing any barriers and obstacles that are put in place that are going to perhaps harm our environment or our global community in terms of environmental sustainability type of things. Now, knowing these three pillars of sustainability, we can take a deeper look then at this particular model here. This particular graphic or model, it's a graphic showing a model, and this model that we're showing here in this to the left was a model created by Molly Scott Cato. And Molly Scott Cato theorized, I guess you can say, or developed the idea that the economy and society should be constrained by the environment as illustrated by this model. And so what this means is, if you're looking at this this graphic here, you can see that the economy and the society are all within the environment. And what this means is that economic sustainability and social sustainability must be constrained by the environment. And what that means is that you can only do what you can within your environment. So for example, if we're dealing with a community that's in the northern part of the world that's very, very cold, and maybe there's no way for them to grow certain things, well, then they are confined or constrained by their environment. So there are certain things in economic sustainability that just will not work for this region because the environment prevents it from being so. Same thing with the social sustainability for people. We live in our environment, and our environment does impact what we do and how we are able to move socially and things like that. So this is all this model is saying, that both economic and social sustainability are constrained by the environment that it's around. So now, taking a little bit of a deeper dive into economic sustainability, let's look at some of the actions that we can actually do in regards to economic sustainability. So everything above this red line, those are four particular actions that we're going to talk about regarding economic sustainability. First one is establish sustainable transportation and infrastructure. One of the things that you all are currently experiencing with the passage of the infrastructure bill recently in Congress, this would be an example of economic sustainability action. So we are establishing transportation and infrastructure in our country to try to better serve our economic interests. So that was one of the goals of this big thing that's been going through Congress for the last few weeks. Secondly, investing in education, research, and technology. Well, that's kind of duh. If we clearly see that there's an economic situation going on, then we need to invest in education, teach students and future generations how to be economically viable, how to have the right skill set to be able to be successful in a career that they choose. So you have to invest in education. You have to invest in research so that you can, only through research are you really going to be able to develop new ideas, new concepts, new products. And so that provides economic sustainability. And of course, you want to invest in technology. Thirdly, we have increasing jobs and incomes through business development. So Yes, that is correct. You are seeing that correct, that, increasing jobs and income is a good thing for economic sustainability. Don't ask me why. I don't know either why in the world it is that the people who have the money don't want this to happen. But that's true, and science has already kind of theorized, and we can show you on graphs and charts that increasing jobs and increasing people's income will actually increase economic sustainability. But we're not there yet because there's this little thing called greed. Sorry to say. And then lastly, reducing corruption. Reducing corruption is going to help everybody. It doesn't matter who it is, but reducing corruption does help increase economic sustainability. Now we know what the 4 different actions that we can look at. Let's take a look here at globalization and how it influences sustainability. So, globalization influences sustainability by introducing new ideas that improve businesses. So that's why business leaders usually talk to people from other parts of the country or other parts of the world so they can kind of get new ideas. And it calls, that's an exchange of information and ideas. And through that, that's how you develop new technologies. Also, creating new opportunities that are not available. Only through research and communication and reaching out through globalization efforts are you going to be able to create these new things. And same thing with introducing new technologies. And this one, reducing tariffs and establish system to easy money flow and access to markets. I know what you all are thinking, and in the previous administration, but tariffs, that's one of the first rules in economics. Tariffs are bad. Why we still do them? It's supposed to encourage people to buy your domestic products, but in an era of globalization, that's a little bit difficult. Okay, so now we're going to take a different focus. Now we're going to look and address the North-South divide, which is very much a real thing. So first of all, before we do that, we need to define exactly what global North is and what global South is, because these are global political terms that are used to divide our planet on basically the haves and the have-nots for all intents and purposes. So the global North consists of things like the United States, Canada, Western Europe, and developed parts of Eastern Asia. So we're talking about like Japan and South Korea. Global South consists of Africa, Latin America, the developing Asian countries, and the Middle East. So if you look at this map that we see here, it clearly shows you the divide between southern and northern Europe, or not Europe, but parts of the globe. So global North and global South. And of course, yes, Australia and New Zealand are considered part of global North because they are Western in thought and culture, and they are highly industrialized. So even though when they're in the southern hemisphere, they are still considered, part of the global North. So do not let that confuse you in any way. So countries in the North are members of the G8. So all members of the G8 are global North countries. The G8 countries include France, Germany, Italy, Japan, the United Kingdom, the United States, Canada, and Russia. So those are your G8 countries. And of course, you notice they're all in the global North. And so there are also 4 of the 5 permanent members in the UN Security Council are G8 members. So these are very unique things to think about. So if we already know that our global economic system is based on capitalism, so it is based on capitalism, and 4 of the 5 permanent members of the UN Security Council are capitalists themselves, then there's no wonder why it continues to be a dominant feature. Characteristics of these global North nations tend to be technology, urban manufacturing economies. So they're very much, think about what we have here in the United States. That's typical, even in Britain and in Russia. They're not as advanced as we are, but they still are. They have the same kinds of technology. They have low birth and death rates, and they have high levels of female empowerment. It may not feel like that here in the United States to many, but we do, compared to other parts of the world, we do have high levels of female empowerment. And we have low population density. These are characteristics of global North countries. But now let's look to see how things are in the South. So when you shift your focus now to the global South, these are the characteristics of global South. Largely agrarian. So there's very little technology. So it's largely agrarian. So they do a lot of farming and that type of thing. So it's not at all technologically advanced like the global North is. they have very high birth and death rates. So when you have a high birth rate and a high death rate, I mean, your population is not that sustainable. Thirdly, lower levels of female empowerment. In most of these places in the global south, females do not have as much, political power or access to education or access to successful health care for them. And so as a result, that, harms the global south in many regards. They have a higher population density. They're economically dependent on the north for the most part. Most of these countries in the global south, they do receive foreign aid from most of the northern countries. And that's really the only way that some of them can actually make their bills and keep their even countries sustainable. And then there's also low productivity and low income. Please do not interpret that low productivity that, oh, well, people in global south countries are lazy. That's not what that means. What that means is that they don't have the infrastructure, they don't have the access to tools and manufacturing to be able to sustain them or to become more technologically advanced. So that's what that means. So please don't look at that to say that is a negative that people in the global south are lazy. That's not what that means at all. So with this large varying differences between global north and global south, we need to come up with some way to how to address this global divide, because this simply isn't fair. I mean, to be perfectly honest. So how do we address it? Well, first we should allow easier transfer of technology and ideas from north to south. So why are we not spending more amount of time trying to go into the south and be able to help? We have the capability to do that. We should be doing more to help. Secondly, we should cancel or reschedule debt of the south. You have to remember that the groups like the IMF and the World Bank have put most of these countries in, financial ruin because they require that they, change their spending formulas in their own country budgets in order to accommodate the loan that they're going to get from the IMF and the World Bank and all those different financial organizations. So we've pretty much, put these countries in debt and in poverty just by, trying to financially help them, but also negatively impacting them by that. We should also increase representation of southern nations in global institutions. So the only way you're going to hear the voices of the marginalized is to actually put them in the group. And so if everybody's continuing to complain about, well, southern nations aren't doing this, well, you're not inviting them to the party. So, I mean, they're not going to know that the rest of the world wants to go in a different direction if you don't invite them to the party. And last, to address food crisis in the southern portions of the world much sooner and empower women in the global south. I mean, so we recognize that there are food shortages that have happened multiple times in the southern part of the planet, and yeah, there's some help that is sent, but it's not as much as it should be, because, those who have, we should be helping them more. And that is what this is all about in terms of trying to address that global divide, is encouraging northern nations to try to help southern nations more without putting more constraints on them like we do for the IMF and the World Bank. So there you have it. This is our lesson on economic sustainability. Most of it was about global south divide, I think, but it is all about global economic sustainability for nations. So can you explain what economic sustainability is? Can you describe and explain the north-south divide? And can you explain how the north-south divide can be reduced? If you can, pat yourself on the back. You did an amazing job. At this point, make sure that you have completed your notes and look for the activity for lesson 1.9 and look for your activity and then move on to lesson 1.9. Thank you so much for your time and have a wonderful day.